The average millionaire actually pays off their house in just about 10.2 years. Let that sink in for a second.
Yeah, that is a wild statistic. It really is.
Right. I mean, we spend so much time culturally just accepting that a 30-year mortgage is, essentially a permanent fixture of adult life. But the people who are actually building lasting wealth, they eliminate that debt in a third of the time.
Exactly. And here is the secret that most people miss. They don't do it because they make $1 million a year. They do it because they have a level of intentionality that, most people would think is completely crazy.
It really requires a total paradigm shift. Most of us are conditioned to view a mortgage as just a glorified rent payment, right? Mm-hmm. Something we just have to endure until we retire.
Oh, for sure. We completely fixate on the monthly payment instead of the total cost.
Yeah.
But when you actually talk to these individuals who have crushed their mortgage in a decade, you find they operate with a completely different set of rules about what money is actually for.
So today, we're going to show you exactly how to do it. Consider this our personal mentoring session for you. Our mission for this deep dive is to provide you, especially if you are a pastor, a church leader, or just guiding a Christian family with a faith-centered, intensely practical roadmap to mortgage freedom.
Mm-hmm. We're going to look at the mechanics, the mindset, and honestly, the spiritual profoundness of actually owning the roof over your head.
Yes, absolutely. But before we even touch a calculator or, start breaking down amortization schedules, we have to establish the why. Because the financial discipline required to pay off a house early is grueling.
Grueling is the right word. If your why is just to have a slightly larger net worth on paper, you're going to quit the second the budget gets tight.
Yeah.
We have to really look at why owning a home free and clear matters from a biblical and character building perspective.
Let's unpack the historical context of this because it is fascinating. We draw a lot of our insight on stewardship from the writings of Ellen G. White. But to really grasp her counsel, you have to remember she was writing during the height of the 19th century Industrial Revolution.
Right, which was a brutal time for the working class.
Exactly. This was a time when immense masses of people were being packed into these crowded, polluted cities. They were entirely dependent on factory owners for their livelihood, renting tenement housing, and basically trapped.
Trapped in a cycle where they relied on corrupt, secular systems just to survive.
Yeah. So her counsel to get out of the cities and obtain a small piece of land wasn't just about, breathing fresh air or gardening.
No, it was a massive strategic economic mandate. She pointed out that if God's original principles of stewardship had actually been honored, the poor wouldn't be kept under constant financial oppression. Instead of being dependent on others to constantly think and plan for them, they would have the opportunity to develop true independence of thought and action. A family that owns their land and produces their own food cannot be easily manipulated by an employer or a landlord.
Which translates so perfectly to modern personal finance. I always say that renting, or just being trapped in a lifetime of suffocating consumer and mortgage debt, is essentially spiritual renting.
Oh, I like that phrase, spiritual renting.
Right, because you are always beholden to someone else's terms, whether that's a landlord raising the rent or some massive banking institution demanding their interest payment. That financial leash severely limits your freedom to fully minister.
It absolutely does.
It limits your ability to be radically generous and to live out your actual calling, because your primary energy is just spent servicing a debt rather than serving your community.
And on the flip side, the sheer sense of being the legal owner of your own home inspires this intrinsic desire for improvement. It acts as a catalyst. Families develop skill in planning for themselves. Children actually see the value of hard work and taking care of what is legally theirs.
Yeah, it changes the whole family dynamic.
It really does. It strengthens the intellect, and as people regain that lost moral independence, it forms a foundation for leadership. If you are a church leader, you are called to guide others in stewardship. When you have applied these principles and removed the burden of debt, your life becomes a living, breathing testimony of God's wisdom.
Hearing that spiritual mandate to get out of debt is incredibly motivating. In fact, it's so motivating that a lot of people's first instinct is to run to their checking account, drain their savings, and throw every last dime at the bank today.
Oh, I see it all the time, but please don't do that.
Right. Because jumping straight to the mortgage without laying the groundwork will actually bankrupt you.
Yes. People get all fired up about a massive goal, like paying off the house, but they skip the non-negotiables. Aggressively attacking a mortgage must only happen after your financial foundation is completely secure.
And by foundation, we mean zero consumer debt.
Zero consumer debt. A fully funded emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of living expenses. You also need to be actively investing 15% of your household income into retirement and setting aside money for your kids' education, if that applies to you.
Okay, wait, hold on. Let me play devil's advocate here because I hear this pushback from families all the time.
Let's hear it.
You're telling me to sit on $20,000 or $30,000 in a savings account, making a measly, 4% yield, while the bank is charging me 7% on my mortgage? Mathematically, that feels totally backwards. Why shouldn't I just use that cash to kill the 7% debt?
Because you are calculating math without calculating risk. Throwing all your extra cash at a mortgage while you have zero emergency savings is like upgrading the stereo system in a car that has no brakes.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Sure, it looks great on the outside, and on paper you are saving a few points of interest. But the second you hit a financial pothole, a medical emergency, a job loss, the transmission blows up, you are going to crash straight into a crisis. You can't pay the emergency room bill with a brick from your chimney.
You literally become house rich and cash poor.
Precisely. Your equity is trapped inside the drywall. And because you have no liquid cash buffer, you end up putting that emergency right back onto a high-interest credit card at 24%. You slide right back into the bondage you were trying to escape.
So the emergency fund isn't an obstacle?
No, emergency funds aren't obstacles to paying off the house. They are the required guardrails keeping you from falling off the cliff.
You know, Ellen White has a sobering warning that speaks right to this lack of preparation. She wrote about counseling a couple with spendthrift habits. They were the type to use all their resources as they passed along, enjoying everything in the moment, living right on the absolute edge of their income.
A very common modern problem.
Very common. But when affliction struck, they were wholly unprepared. She pointed out that if they had been economical managers, if they'd been willing to practice self-denial, they could have owned a home and had means to draw upon in adversity.
That's powerful.
Her conclusion there is heavy. She says if we neglect the discipline of self-denial and economy, our characters won't be complete in the eyes of God. Building an emergency fund isn't just about financial safety. It is about learning the character trait of delayed gratification.
Spot on. And once those brakes are installed, you have no credit card debt, your emergency fund is flush, your retirement is rolling, then you hit the gas and attack the mortgage. And this is where we have to explain the actual mechanics of how a mortgage works, because the math here is staggering.
It really is. Most people do not understand how amortization actually functions. When you sign a standard 30-year mortgage, the payments are heavily front-loaded with interest.
Super heavy.
In month one, the bank takes almost all of your payment as pure profit. Only a microscopic sliver actually goes toward reducing the principal balance of the house. As the years go by, that ratio slowly shifts.
Right. So when you send a targeted principal-only extra payment in year 2, you're not just knocking $500 off your balance today. You are literally assassinating the compounding interest that specific $500 would have birthed over the next 28 years.
Assassinating the interest. I love that.
Let's put real numbers to this so you can see the scale. Let's say you have a fairly standard $240,000 mortgage at a 7% interest rate set up over a 30-year term.
Pretty typical scenario.
Right, and most people just set up the auto pay and ignore it for 3 decades. But if you make just one additional payment every quarter, so 4 extra payments a year applied strictly to the principal, you will cut the life of that mortgage nearly in half.
Wait. 1 extra payment a quarter?
Yes. Just 4 extra payments a year pays off that 30-year loan approximately 15 years early.
That is mind-blowing.
And in doing so, you save roughly $184,000 in pure interest.
Think about that. 1 extra payment every 3 months buys back a decade and a half of your life. That is absolute financial freedom. And saving nearly $200,000 in interest. That is generational, life-changing money that you get to keep for your family, your future, and your ministry, instead of just handing it over to a bank executive's bonus pool.
The math is undeniably powerful, but it requires relentless consistency. Because finding that extra payment, manufacturing that margin in your everyday budget month after month, year after year, that is the actual war. Margin doesn't happen by accident.
No, it definitely doesn't. Let's talk about where to find it. One of the biggest areas we always audit is the grocery and food budget. I want to incorporate a Seventh-day Adventist lifestyle illustration here because there is already this deeply ingrained cultural value of preparing wholesome plant-based meals at home.
Huge financial advantage there.
Exactly. Let's look at the math on a typical Friday night. You could easily spend, $75 taking the family out to a casual restaurant, or you could lean into that health message, go to the grocery store, and prepare a massive, delicious meal of lentils, roasted vegetables, and rice for maybe $10.
So you're saving $65 in a single evening.
Right. And if you make that choice twice a week, you've just manufactured over $500 a month in margin. You essentially found your extra quarterly mortgage payments just by aligning your diet with your faith. Making wise, health-conscious choices actively blesses your body, but it also compounds to accelerate your journey to debt freedom.
Good stewardship of your health directly translates to good stewardship of your wealth. It's all connected. But, as you start finding this margin, you will inevitably encounter the single most dangerous psychological threat to a payoff plan. Economists call it the hedonic treadmill, but we usually just call it lifestyle creep.
Oh man, it is so insidious. God blesses a family with a promotion at work or a nice year-end bonus or a side hustle really takes off. And the immediate, almost subconscious temptation is to upgrade the baseline of your life.
Always.
You think, well, I make more now, so I deserve a nicer car. We should take a bigger vacation. Let's remodel the guest bathroom.
And look, none of those things are inherently evil, but if every single increase in your income is immediately consumed by an identical increase in your standard of living, you will perpetually tread water. You will never build momentum.
Which brings us right to Paul's words in 1 Timothy 6, verse 6. Godliness with contentment is great gain. Contentment isn't just a nice spiritual sentiment. It is a vital economic weapon against lifestyle creep.
A weapon. I like that.
When your heart is genuinely content with the vehicle you drive and the home you already live in, you disable the psychological need for a constant drip of material upgrades. That contentment allows you to take the raise, the bonus, the tax refund, and apply it directly to the principal. You buy your freedom from the bank one payment at a time.
Now, for families who are doing all of this, they've cut the budget, they are living on beans and rice, they're totally content, but the margin still just isn't enough to make a dent. We have to look at more radical options. One strategy is refinancing from a 30-year to a 15-year fixed-rate mortgage.
The reason you want to do this, if the math allows, is that banks assume much less risk on a 15-year timeline compared to a 30-year timeline, so they reward you with a noticeably lower interest rate. More of your money goes to the principal every single month by default.
It accelerates the timeline dramatically. But there's a massive non-negotiable safeguard we always stress here. The new 15-year monthly payment must never exceed 25% of your take-home pay.
That's critical.
If you refinance and your payment jumps to 40% of your income, it stops being a tool for progress and becomes a source of suffocating financial stress. You leave yourself zero room for groceries, gas, or generosity.
The other radical option is downsizing. Selling a large home, moving into something significantly more modest, and using the massive equity from the sale to either pay cash for the new place or take out a microscopic mortgage. But, I have to admit, downsizing is a tough pill to swallow. Culturally, we are trained to view our home's square footage as our primary scorecard for success.
Oh, without a doubt.
So how do you coach a family to untangle their ego from their floor plan?
It requires deep humility. You have to consciously choose to value time over space. When we sit down with a family considering this, we ask them to look critically at their current massive home. We ask, is the extra guest room that you use twice a year and the formal dining room that just collects dust really worth 10 more years of mandatory labor to the bank?
Putting it in terms of mandatory labor changes everything.
It forces you to weigh the physical asset against your actual lifespan. When you frame it in terms of time, downsizing suddenly looks like the ultimate strategic advantage. You are trading drywall for decades of freedom. And the families who make that choice almost never regret the peace of mind they gain.
Now, as people get desperate to find margin, they often start looking for financial shortcuts. And in the financial world, shortcuts are almost always landmines. Financial institutions actively market certain myths to keep families confused and to keep them generating interest. We need to dismantle these right now.
The first major myth we see, and this usually comes from a place of panic or extreme impatience, is the idea of cashing out retirement savings to pay off the house. People look at their 401k balance and think, well, it's my money. I should just use it to wipe out this debt.
Oh, please hear us on this. Doing that is a devastatingly costly mistake.
Oh.
Let's break down the mechanics of why. If you withdraw money from a traditional 401k or IRA before you reach age 59 and a half, the IRS immediately slapped you with the 10% early withdrawal penalty.
Just right off the top.
Right off the top. But that's not all, because that money went in pre-tax. The government now treats that entire withdrawal as ordinary income for the year.
Depending on your tax bracket, you could easily lose 30 to 40% of your wealth before the check even clears your bank account. You withdraw $100,000, but only $60,000 actually makes it to your mortgage balance. The government takes the rest.
Ouch.
And on top of that brutal haircut, you sacrifice all the compound growth that money would have generated over the next 20 years. Your older self will desperately need that growth to survive in retirement. Never rob your future to pay for your present.
Myth number 2 is a classic, and I hear this from smart people, even accountants, which drives me crazy. It's the idea that you should keep your mortgage specifically for the tax deduction.
Oh, the tax deduction myth.
Yes. The logic is that paying mortgage interest lowers your taxable income. So keeping the loan is actually a savvy financial move. Let me give you an analogy for why this is terrible advice. Keeping a mortgage for the tax deduction is like spending $100 at a store you didn't even want to visit.
Just so you can use a 25% off coupon at the register.
Exactly. It's bad math.
The math simply does not work in your favor. Let's put real numbers on it. Let's say you pay the bank $10,000 in interest over the course of the year. When you file your taxes, the government allows you to deduct that $10,000 from your income. If you are in a 25% tax bracket, avoiding taxes on that $10,000 saves you $2,500 on your tax bill.
So you sent the bank $10,000 to save $2,500 at the IRS. You are experiencing a net loss of $7,500. You traded $1 to get a quarterback.
Precisely. No amount of creative, sophisticated accounting makes losing money a good deal. When you pay off the house, yes, you lose the deduction, but you get to keep the entire $10,000 in your own bank account.
Makes total sense when you lay it out like that. The third myth involves those official-looking letters you get in the mail offering to set up a biweekly mortgage payment program.
Oh, I hate those letters.
Right. They usually try to charge you a setup fee of maybe $300, plus a monthly administrative fee of $4 or $5, just to manage your payments for you.
Now, the underlying mechanism of a biweekly payment is actually a fantastic strategy because there are 52 weeks in a year. If you pay exactly half your mortgage every 2 weeks, you end up making 26 half payments. That naturally equals 13 full payments over the course of the year. It sneaks one extra full payment onto your principal annually without you really feeling it.
So the strategy is sound, but paying a third-party company to do it for you is a complete waste of money. You can do this yourself for free. Just divide your regular payment by 12 and add that fraction to your normal monthly check. You achieve the exact same mathematical result without paying a middleman $300.
The critical detail here, though, is that you must clearly specify to your lender that any additional funds sent are to be applied directly to the principal balance, not to prepaid interest or an escrow account. If you don't tell them, they'll just hold it.
Great point. Okay, so once you navigate the math, build the margin, and dodge these myths, the day finally comes. The final payment clears the account. The bank sends you the deed with a big paid-in-full stamp on it. You are totally, unequivocally debt-free.
The best feeling in the world.
But there's one crucial post-payoff step we really have to emphasize. Do not make the mistake of calling up and canceling your homeowner's insurance just to save a few bucks.
Yes, please listen to this. When you have a mortgage, the lender forces you to hold an insurance policy because they need to protect their investment. If the house burns down, they want their money back.
Right.
When the mortgage is gone, maintaining that insurance is fully your choice. But your home remains your largest earthly asset. Keeping it fully insured against fire, storms, and liability is just basic foundational stewardship. You have way too hard to leave your family exposed to a total loss.
Absolutely. So let's cast a vision as we wrap this up. I want you to close your eyes and imagine stepping out onto the front lawn of a home that is completely, legally, and permanently yours. The grass literally feels different under your feet when you own it.
It really does.
There is no monthly payment hovering over your head next week. There is no interest quietly compounding against you while you sleep. There is no bank holding a claim on your family's shelter. The heavy, suffocating burden of financial anxiety lifts entirely, and in its place comes this profound, incredible sense of peace and endless possibility.
And we must remember that this peace is the ultimate purpose of the entire journey. We always bring it back to biblical stewardship. Achieving this level of financial freedom isn't about hoarding wealth so you can sit on a massive pile of money isolated from the world. It fundamentally transforms what you can do with your income.
Yes.
Instead of sending a massive check to a lender every single month, your hands are completely untied. You can exercise radical generosity to your church, you can fund ministries and community missions without hesitation, and you model a powerful, undeniable legacy of faithfulness for your children and grandchildren.
It perfectly echoes Ellen White's original vision. A paid-for home isn't just an asset on a personal balance sheet. It is a tangible monument to the faithfulness of God and the disciplined perseverance of His people. It builds dignity, it creates true economic independence, and it establishes a rock-solid foundation from which your family can bless others.
The journey requires deep sacrifice. It demands self-denial, and it takes time. But if you start exactly where you are today, secure your foundation first, resist the cultural pressure to inflate your lifestyle, and aggressively attack the principle, you will absolutely reach the finish line.
Remember how we started talking about that quiet resignation? The feeling that the paid-off home was just an impossible dream reserved for the wealthy? It's not. It is a reality that intentional, disciplined families reach every single day.
Every single day.
So as we close out this mentoring session, we want to leave you with one final thought to roll over on your own. We want you to really picture this. If you didn't have a mortgage payment holding you back next month, what is one specific ministry, calling, or need in your community that you could fully fund